So, Dr. Kim, what does speaking the truth mean? Where does this concept come from?
I'm reading through the Bible this year in the Message, and I was looking at Ephesians 4, and it says, God wants us to grow up, to know the whole truth, and to tell it in love, like Christ and everything. And I think that's our model there. It's God gave us that model. When we have something to say, we say it in love. We say it like Christ would say it. It's really the way we say things. We don't say things in a mean way, offensive way. It's done in love. It honors Jesus, honors the church, and it's to edify and strengthen your marriage, not to just have this just a way to criticize your spouse all the time and beat them down. That's not
Yeah,
what it
that
is
is
at
so
all.
good. Yeah, I love that. I love that message version. I've never actually heard the
Uh,
message version of
uh,
that. Is that from the Ephesians verse from
Ephesians
Ephesians
4,
4, 4 for
14,
okay.
15. Yeah,
Okay, that is amazing. Yeah, I love the verbiage there of just
I do
that.
too.
So
It just really puts it in really practical. This is what I need to do.
yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah, and so what we're talking about here when we say speaking the truth, we're not talking about just like honesty versus dishonesty. We're talking about saying hard things to each other sometimes. So the way I kind of think of speaking the truth in love is saying hard things to people we are in close relationship with out of love. So it's not just speaking the truth to like every Joe Schmo on the sidewalk, saying like, "Hey,
Yeah.
your hair looks bad, lady," or "Hey, do that," like it's like someone you're in a really close relationship with. And so sometimes that means this is going to be your spouse. And so I think sometimes it feels like either a lie or not being completely honest or not saying anything at all is the more loving thing to do. Like sometimes it feels like that, but it's often not the more loving thing to do. Saying hard truths is loving when we're in the right relationship and it's said with grace and with love.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what it's got to be foremost in our minds, because I think you can take something like this and just go crazy with it on somebody and just think, well, I can speak the truth and blah blah blah, and you're saying things and just beating somebody up, and that's not at all what God wants us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said about this just a moment ago, you said it's not a license to be critical. And I
Yep.
think that that's what this is. This is not a license to be critical. This is speaking the truth in love, which is going to include gentleness and kindness and prayer. And so what I think would be helpful is just talking about some examples of what speaking the truth in love is. So some examples of this I think are calling out sin sometimes, like when we see sin in our
Absolutely.
spouse and we want
Yep.
to call it out would probably be like the number one that I think of. And then also telling the truth when our spouse asks us hard questions about
Yeah.
themselves when a lie would feel better. And so I'm not talking about husbands. If your wife says that she looks fat in something, like I'm not talking about that. And also, wives, don't do that. Stop doing that. Don't ask your husband if you look fat in something. Just take that away from your vocabulary. That just
There
thrown
is,
away.
because there's no way a husband can answer that right. If you hesitate 1 second, you're already lost.
Yeah.
And most of us have to stop and think, and then by then she said, "Well, you think I am."
Yeah, definitely. It's just not helpful. So we're just
It's
not
not
going to do
helpful.
that. We're not
Okay.
talking about that here. But what I am talking about here is like, for instance, maybe you ask your spouse, like, "Hey, this thing happened at work and this is how it went down. Like, do you think I was wrong for responding that
Yeah.
way?" Sometimes it feels like a lie would be more loving of just saying, "Oh, yeah, of course you handled that right." But if the truth is, no, you really do see where your spouse handled it wrong, sometimes the loving thing is to say that hard truth in the moment. So
Yeah.
that's another example. And then I think another example of this would be what I think about when I think of this concept, I guess I should say, is just that like iron sharpens iron. So it's this concept, and it comes from a Bible verse. It's this concept of metaphorically kind of like chipping someone, which is painful. Like it hurts, like iron sharpening iron. And like you're
Yeah.
thinking of like knives being sharpened, like that hurts, but out of love to make someone stronger. So this concept of chipping someone that you love out of love to make them stronger is kind
That's
of the
good.
way I like to think about it.
Yeah. And I love that. I think that's a great picture, but it's always has to be done out of love.